You're listening to the Social Selling Simplified podcast. Stick around if you too are obsessed with learning things that actually work and believe that success leaves clues. We're all about identifying results-producing roadmaps and getting super clear on how to scale and grow your online business. From part-timer to president, social selling expert Ashley Shaw will help you connect the dots and take the guesswork out of what works to grow a social selling empire. It's time to hear from social selling legends, listen in on truthful conversations, and learn the best tips and tricks to reduce the marketing overwhelm so you can build the social selling business of your dreams. If you're ready to go all in, no holding back, and build the business you've always wanted, you're in the right place. Here's your host, educator, social selling guru, and fitness industry OG, Ashley Shaw.
Welcome to Social Selling Simplified. I'm your host, Ashley Shaw, and today I'm sitting down with Kim Fitzpatrick, who is a mama of two. She has two online businesses. She's happily married, and she is a gerontologist turned entrepreneur. And for those of you who don't know what a gerontologist is, I had to ask for myself. It is someone who actually studies aging. So I'm so thrilled to have you. Thank you so much for being here today, Kim. So I want to start by getting a little bit more about your story. Like obviously this study of gerontology and how you got into all of this is super fascinating. So let's start there. How did you get into gerontology?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I could not get my mute button off, so I wanted to first say thank you, Ashley. It's such an honor to be here. And, you know, it's just so great to be a guest on your show and your podcast. I appreciate that so much. And to answer your question, I actually started in the field of senior living when how old was I? I was 20 years of age. I was trying to figure out what my designation was going to be. I was really lost in my career. You know, I was at college. I was on the soccer team. I was an athlete my whole life. At one point, I was working for all the promotion teams. So I was like Finlandia vodka, cover girl. Like I used to drive around in a van that had these like Nikki Taylor and all these models on it. And I would be giving out this makeup at Ricky Martin concerts. And I had no idea how to even do makeup. So it was very ironic that I was even in that role because I had no passion for it, but it was fun, right? It was fun. It was exciting. I was in the world of rec and leisure, you know, and I really just thought I'm going to be a camp counselor for the rest of my life. That was my goal when I was in my teens, moving into my 20s. And I was like, I don't know. I didn't know there was any other option really. I felt like I didn't know what the world wanted me to do. And I just kind of felt a little lost. So one day I was actually walking to my soccer practice and I saw this group of residents, must have been residents, but they were older adults. I love seniors. I love older adults. I have a passion for people, but I really had a passion for older adults. You know, I always say to teachers that can have groups of small children, my full love and respect goes out to them because it wants to send me running. But you put me in a room of older adults with, you know, 70 and above at 80, 90, 100, I'm in my sweet spot. So I saw this group of people walking around and I was late for practice. And I knew I could go to two forks in the path. I could go left down the hill to soccer and not be late and not have to run suicide drills. Or I could go right and follow my intuition as to why are these residents on their own in a parking lot at a college. So I caught up with them and I actually had seen that they were just far behind the pack of their workers that were with them. I don't know what happened and how they got separated, but they did. There were these three of them that got separated. So I started walking with them because I thought it was the right thing to do and I could explain it to my coach. And in that short 5-minute period of being able to walk with them, I learned three things. First, they were prisoners in the care home. That's what they called themselves, prisoners in the care home down the street from them. And I'm this naive 20-year-old that has really limited experience. So I thought, oh my gosh, what's happening? The second thing is they said they were bored out of their mind. And the last thing they said was they have no idea who they are even with and where they're supposed to be. So I was like, what is happening? I finally caught up with them and I realized that they were residents living with dementia from long-term care, walking around. And I was like, right from that day, I'm like, I'm supposed to make people's lives better. I'm supposed to make sure they don't feel like they live in prison. Oh, I'm supposed to help them feel like they can be fulfilled living their life even into the later ages. So for me, that's where my pivot started, when I started to understand that I had a deep-seated love for people. I had a deep-seated root and calling and deep purpose for helping people live a really beautiful life, no matter what age, stage, season you're in. And then the last thing I realized was I was going to save the world of senior living because it sounded awful. And that's what I thought my purpose was. And that's really how I got started. And my career kind of sprung into that from, multiple diplomas and things in the world of senior living, and started my career at 23 as a manager and worked my way up the corporate ladder in the corporate world. And it was a beautiful, beautiful life. And, I had a lot of fun. I was an employee, and then I went to corporate consultant, which for me sounded fancy. I got to travel. Guys, it is not as what it seems. It was glamorous for like the first 3 weeks. And then I was so sick of packing and unpacking that I was like, what am I doing for the next 5 years? But that's kind of it in a nutshell. My passion really started when I was in my late teens and early 20s to just identify that I had a bigger purpose of helping people. My shift came though, when I realized it didn't just have to be focused on seniors. It could be focused on everyone.
Yeah, I love that when you can look back, and we don't always see how the dots connect looking forwards, but always looking back when that story emerges of that first moment of realization. It's so beautiful that you remember it so vividly and you're able to capture that moment. So I guess from that experience then, how did I know that you own a couple of online businesses. How did that change the trajectory of the businesses that you later developed and built? How did that set up the framework for you?
I love that question so much. I really believe that if I hadn't had the multiple roles and the multiple leaders that I had the honor of kind of reporting into, I don't think that I would be as well equipped as I am today to lead the teams or to build the business as I am. So I feel that it beautifully complemented being able to look outside of the box, so to speak. But in that same breath, I actually had no desire to start anything different. I didn't want to, my sister was in direct selling, had a really successful network marketing company that she's a part of. But for me, I always found it, she left her corporate job. I remember my parents being like, oh, Christy left the corporate job, and I was like, finally the white swan of the family that didn't screw up in my corporate job. So when I heard that played with my mind and my soul of thinking, oh, is that wrong? Why is it? Is it weird? What do you mean? Right? Because, so for me, I had this actually preconceived notion that it wasn't okay. So I didn't really think there was anything other than going up the VP ladder. I didn't think there was more than traveling 50 to 70 hours a week. I didn't know there was stuff that was different than seeing my kids and my husband together for 4 nights out of a month. I thought that was it because that was what I was taught, and that's what I was told, and that's what I was modeled my entire life, that you work for someone else and you just work your way up, and that deems your success. Your title deems your success. I had a family member that laughed at one of my business cards because it wasn't a CEO or a VIP or VP title, or because titles were really big for my family. So that for me never led me down a different path of trying to start my own business because it scared me. But my husband, on the other hand, decided to open a dog store from the end of a dock and quit his teaching job, gave up cashed in his pension and opened a coast to coast franchise, right? $66 million franchise. And that to me was like, oh, but he's the one that can do that. And I admired that so much. And I admired him so much. But if I'm honest with you, the notion for me, knowing that I could do that too, very well scared me. So this opportunity for us, and where we started to see that change and where I started to see that kind of shift out of, gosh, maybe this is the only thing for me, was because my husband was the one who actually found our first business opportunity. And it was him that decided. It was something that we had been actually a part of for 10 years. We loved it. Clients loved it. It was awesome. But I never knew there was another side. And Jamie, my husband, just is the entrepreneur he is. We had a fall from grace, and we were both in corporate good jobs. We were doing okay. But what happened for us back in the world of his last entrepreneurial franchise, it ruined us. We had to almost claim bankruptcy. He walked away from a $66 million company, and we were in a personal lawsuits. And that's a lot for, we had a young child. Colby was brand new. And my husband, we were like, he was unemployed, and I had a new baby on maternity leave, not making any money other than my EI. And I went back to work at 6 months when my son was born, after 6 months. And what happened for me is I went back to that. I always thought we had to hustle. We always weren't making enough, even in our corporate jobs, to help us get out of where we were debt-wise from that fall from grace we had. And we were okay with it because you just did what you did, right? You pay off what you can pay off. You do, like, that's like normal life. You have debt and you pay it off, and you do slow things. And we weren't able to vacation a lot, and we still living where we've always lived. We don't want more things. We've had more things. We don't want more things. We want a better life. And that's what my husband turned to me and he said, I have this opportunity that I think I could try and do part-time that I think would help us subsidize some of that debt. And that's where it started. I fell in love with supporting and serving people. I fell in love with understanding that we could build income in our own independent way. And what actually ironically happened at the same time, there was a massive merger and my corporate company got bought out and everything was unrooted and all that certainty was gone. And all of me being that shining star in our corporate world was, my boss was gone. So I was just on the totem pole, right? Or I was on the chopping block. So for me, it was my first time I ever felt that, oh my gosh, well, maybe this isn't guaranteed. Maybe this isn't it for me. Maybe this gift of an opportunity that I've been slowly building on the side here is what I was supposed to be doing all along. But this other opportunity got me there.
I love how you said what happened for us. I think it just beautifully put. I think when there's a lot of uncertainty and you're sort of treading water and trying to figure out what is the next move I have to make, being able to, I know it always doesn't sometimes happen right in the moment that we realize things happen for us, not to us. I love how you said that. And I think that where you talk about all of a sudden that certainty is sort of gone. One of the things I talk about in my story is I was the president of a fitness company in British Columbia. And all of a sudden I got a phone call that they were closing all the clubs and I was going to have to move to the small town Brights Grove, Ontario, back where my husband was. And there's this moment of, okay, I have a decision to make. All certainty is gone. So I want to talk about that in your scenario. What do you think with that moment of uncertainty? What decision did you make at that moment and how did that shape things for you after that?
Oh, I love that so much. It's a powerful question. And one of the things I started to realize is that I needed to become a steward of my own ship. And I needed to know that I was going to show up anyway. And I know that for what we do, in a lot of people's eyes, it's untraditional. And in my opinion, it's fantastic because it's an opportunity to really show who you are and who you want to be and where you want to go and be able to build something beautifully well, being partnered with an incredible company. And one of the things I will share in that moment of uncertainty was that the harder I worked in the pockets of time that I had off of my other job, the more fulfilled I felt. And I started to realize that as I started to feel more fulfilled, I became a better version of myself. And I continued to grow when there was chaos happening in uncertainty. And because I love John Maxwell, he always talks about the law of the lid. And he says that, your business will never grow, you personally, nor your business, where you want to go in your career. I know you've got so many different listeners here, but where you want to go personally, as well as professionally, it's the law of the lid. So if you're not growing, your businesses will never grow. Your titles, your promotions, wherever your scale, wherever you want to go, you won't grow. If you don't grow, you won't go. So I really found comfort in the fact that I was growing in my online business. when there was fear and uncertainty and a lot of judgment. And I knew that I just could stay true to who I was, and I had nothing to apologize for. I will share that I had, some of the most difficult conversations with some people that that really didn't do the greatest things if you think about the management and the culture that I want to build. And what that taught me, instead of retaliating, instead of gossiping, instead of getting frustrated, is I realized that I had to make a choice. And if I'm honest, and I think this is an important thing to share, and I don't share it a lot, so I'm actually really excited you asked this question. I did end up resigning from that corporate toxic environment. A couple things happened. The CEO of the company called me and she apologized for how I was treated. I walked out with my head high, with full of grace, and they also replaced me with 2 full-time positions because that is the quality of my effort. So I walked out tall, but I didn't walk out and do my own online business full-time because I was scared. I was scared of leaving the industry. I was scared of the opinions of what the Ministry of Ontario and the province of Ontario, of how I had really built a name for who I was and where I wanted to go. So I actually took a contracted position at the Research Institute for Aging, and I did a contracted position, and it was an awesome company. It was a beautiful, beautiful role. But what it taught me, because I believe I should have had faith for not following my faith in the online business opportunity. I followed my fear and was stuck for the first time. And I didn't feel like I had been in control. So I actually exited out of my contract early. And that was the decision I made, not based on other people's opinions, not based on feeling like I had failed a corporate job, but because I was walking away, knowing that I was walking into something that I had built, the culture that I wanted, and I wasn't going to go sit at a desk and be in traffic for an hour each way, commuting ever again. I didn't want that anymore. It served us so well when we needed it, but I knew that I didn't need that at this point because we had grown a business part-time for 3 years. Jamie always said, he's like, our corporate job helped us fund our dreams. And that's how we used it. So we worked hard. We showed up. We were great employees, but we were better CEOs. And I'm proud of that.
Yeah, I love that. I think that it's like a savings account, right? Everything that you learn up into the point that you're at, it adds up and it helps make you become the CEO that you are now. And without those experiences, we change, we become different people because of them. And I think that the timing of this episode is super unique because of all the uncertainty going on right now. And I'm curious, what advice would you give someone if they were out there and obviously the uncertainty is underlying this? What advice would you give them in following a little bit more of that faith and not being pushed by fear, but more being driven by the faith in what they think they could build?
I think there's a couple things I'd love to lean on and kind of unpack. First, you need to know what you love, because I think a lot of people latch onto things because they think it might work or it's a quick fix, and they actually aren't following that passion. So I think the first thing right now, the earth has given us a reset. We're on a pause. And it's a tough pause because there's a lot of hard stuff that's happening in the world. But there are silver linings. And if you can allow yourself the moments of silence and gift yourself that time to actually think about what you really want, I'd love for you to even unpack whether or not you're loving the job you're in. Because a lot of times when something we are fearful it's taken away, we cling on to something that we don't actually even like. And then we cling on to that out of fear, like you said, Ashley, instead of looking at this direction to the light of what could be. So one of the things that could be writing a book for some people, that could be starting a blog, that could be partnering with a company to start building an online business, that could be starting one of your own as a maker, whatever that is for you. But you do need to write out, what are those dreams and what does fire you up? What have you been stuffing down because of fear of what other people think, or fear of we haven't always done it that way, or fear of it might not work? What if it does work? What if that crazy idea works? And I love the analogy that there is a billionaire walking around that invented a pool noodle. So just honestly, if you think your dreams are silly, they're not. But we have to think about this as building legacy. There are a lot of people that are losing their lives right now, and a lot of people that are passing away with their dreams still inside. And we have an opportunity to look at how you want to live your life as the legacy you want to leave. The women that I get to empower will ripple to their children and then their children's children. And my kids are forever changed because I decided to get my act together and heal from past traumatic events instead of requiring them to have a childhood they needed to recover from as well. It is up to us right now in times of pure uncertainty to surrender to the suffering and figure out what's hurting inside, because it's probably your dream screaming at you to listen. And if you get real silent and you actually listen, you're going to be shocked at what ends up coming out and how the universe will align that for you. But if you're so busy stuffing down of why things won't work, you will never be open to what could be. And I think that's my best advice, is to get clear, and remember that in crisis, that's when your true self's revealed. You always were that strong person. You always have been capable and wildly capable, but you have to believe that enough, instead of sitting there and saying what you can't do, is focus on what you can do, for sure.
Well, and I think that there are gifts, like you're saying, that the silence and the pause, but also the uncertainty and the silence that is being created for you to be able to unpack those pieces and let it unfold. In terms of finding what that message is that might come to us with embracing the silence, are there any things that you do when you know you need to listen that help you become clearer on what those messages may be?
Yes, for sure. So I meditate every morning. I've been doing a practice of meditation for about 2 years now, but I've really been meditating for about 1.5 years, because I think for the first half of the year, I thought it was ridiculous, to be honest. So for me, it's breathing, and it is finding a way to regulate my breath and give myself time to have grace and to honor what's coming up. So first is meditation. The second thing I love to do as well is I love to read. I read personal development every morning, and I also journal. And what I journal typically comes from what I'm meditating on, but I also love the 5-minute journals, an awesome tool. It talks a lot about gratitude. It talks about you shaping your day, what will make today great. It talks about the things that are the powerful affirmation statements. The thing that I really want to urge people to understand is that there's this whole notion and this research-based science about cognitive dissonance. And I caution people on this, Ashley, because I think it's really easy to go on and be like, I'm a $1 million earner, but you're doing 10% work ethic, man. So you can't get away with wanting this huge life with a minimum wage work ethic. I'm sorry, you can't. So when you're thinking those thoughts in the morning, for me, I wake up at 5. I try to wake up at 4:50, but I have to get my evening routine in check, because you can't have a morning routine without an evening routine. So one of the things I've been really working on, we had a very traumatic life event happen for us on October 27th. So one of the things I'm giving myself grace with right now is trying to identify our new normal. So in that, I'm shifting and flowing with how my morning routine looks, but the basics have stayed the same. I still meditate. I still do my 5-minute gratitude journal. I love this book called Switch Your Brain On Every Day by Dr. Carolyn Leaf. It's a beautiful, just very science-based, logical, spiritual little passages each day. And it's really helped me, as well as I love the book Heart Talks by Cleo Wade. And they're these little poems that kind of launch you into perspective. And those tools help me feel grounded. You can do those in the gratitude minute journal takes you a few minutes. The meditation you can do in 4 minutes. The guide that I mentioned, the book, is 1 page, and so is Cleo Wade. So it doesn't have to be everything all at once, but it is allowing yourself to write down 3 things you're grateful for. It is allowing yourself to go on YouTube or use the Calm app, or, go on Spotify, has beautiful free meditation, guided meditations. Gabby Bernstein's amazing. So there's a lot of tools for you. There's a lot of resources, but it just comes down to you making a decision that you're going to claim your power back by making sure you take time for you. One of the things that I think is most powerful, and I have not yet nailed this, I use the Start Today journal by Rachel Hollis, and that each part of it is each day you list out 10 dreams. And at the end of that list of your 10 dreams, it says, what dream will you achieve first? And I've started writing, I'm going to lead me first. Because I don't know about any of you, but I'm usually very good at putting myself last. Especially when your kids are home full time and you're supposed to also homeschool them. And the laundry is up to my eyeballs, literally, of clean clothes. So there's a lot of things of what we think we should be doing. And leading me first isn't equating a perfectly made bedroom. Leading me first is having time to think and to breathe and to not let the world get me first. Because when you wake up with the world gets you first. So that's my recommendation. Even if it's 10 minutes, go to bed 10 minutes earlier, turn your phone off, put it outside your bedroom, and go to bed. Because right now your health is your wealth. Your sleep quality is important, your mindset, your heart set, all of those things are going to help you guide your day, but it has to start with you first.
Yeah. Did you do the last 90-day challenge with Rachel Hollis? Or are you familiar with that one?
I am. I love her. Yeah. I have all her emails. Yes, I do, but I don't follow it strictly for sure, but I just love her. Yeah. She's got some great free stuff. She's got another one going on right now. She's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. I noticed a big difference in that for myself, where in the last 90 days, taking that time for yourself in the morning, that the slow down to speed up with your day. Because I think there's a lot of people out there that feel like I don't have any time for myself. And it's not about that. It's about making time. It's easy to jump into emails and what's on social media and all those things, but not making that time for yourself. For me, I just noticed a huge difference in how I felt every day. I felt a lot more calm and, like I knew what I needed to accomplish when I took that time for myself with meditation, journaling, and just reading, getting back to reading instead of jumping into social media right away. So I guess the next question I would have is, what advice would you give to somebody if they were really considering with the landscape of the world right now, and they really had this dream of starting an online business? What would be 1 or 2 things that you would recommend that they do to start getting more into that? Like maybe these are habits or things that they should commit to daily, but what would your recommendation be if they knew like, okay, I'm really passionate about this, I want to go 100% in? What are the things that they would need to get in place or habits that you would suggest committing to?
That's a good question. I feel like that's a loaded question because I think it depends on what stage they're in. I think that if, that person or you, whoever's listening, you've got an idea and you really want to go with it, I think the first step to any of this is sitting down, booking in your schedule, talking to your partner, your spouse, that you're going to take next Saturday morning from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, and you book it in your calendar and you research. And you research who's doing stuff well. And you research what's happening and where. For example, if you want to start a podcast, research, how do I start a podcast? Like, what are the things you need to be doing? For example, who are some great players that could teach you how to start a podcast? Who should you be listening to and following for instruction on how to start a podcast? So your first step is just stopping and remember that you need to take it one bite at a time. I think sometimes we try to do it all. And especially with what's happening in the world, that can become super overwhelming and daunting. And then we end up putting it off. So your first step is put it in your calendar as soon as you're listening to this, whatever day. Maybe it is early in the morning if you're a morning person. Maybe it's when your kids are still sleeping, if you've got kids. Maybe it's when, you're alone somewhere in your house. If you're listening to this while we're in the quarantine of 2020. Otherwise, go wherever you want to go do this. But I do think that it starts with you researching and actually mapping out what does that look like. The second thing I'd recommend doing is brain dumping. Brain dump your ideas. So brain dump what your ideal version would look like. And I always love to talk about reverse engineering, but I would say, like, if you were going to be so successful in this idea that you had, what would that look like for you? What would it feel like? What would it taste like? What would it smell like? All those things. Like, what would unuse those senses? Like, what would it feel like that you've done it? You've made it, and work back from there. And what do you need to do first? Who do you need to reach out to? Who do you need to be talking to? You know, bank, do you need to go to the banks? Like, what is all of this information right now that you need to be looking into? But I would say that it just starts with having this insatiable quench or thirst for wanting more, but more so it's taking action. And I will say, it's like, if you don't take action on your goal, it will never happen. If you don't take action on your dream, it will never happen. And one of the things I find really helpful is to time block that. So if you book it into your calendar, like you'd book a meeting in with your boss, do not cancel on yourself. Just open it up, cast it out, get a blank paper, use your notes, whatever that is for you, and start to really make that happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like taking any imperfect action towards that vision and that goal. Yeah, I love that. And so I know one of the big questions that's going to come up from a lot of listeners is how you have built such a successful following, and obviously, like, your Instagram is bumping. You've got so many people that you're able to have such a positive impact on. So what would be your advice to somebody that is trying to start? They're starting maybe at the beginning, they're just kind of getting going, and they're trying to build legacy for themselves and to have something that they can be really proud of. What tips would you have for them on how to share that on social media?
Well, I think a couple things that I have found has worked really well for me. So the first thing is I show up. I love Danielle LaPorte. And about 3 years ago, I read this article from Danielle LaPorte. And she talked about this notion of naive vulnerability and awake vulnerability. And I love this notion. So I hope that this resonates and is received well with you, because I think sometimes, Ashley, when people show up on social media or they have this great idea, they show up, they share it, they think it's going to be amazing. And this is naive vulnerability. I'm going to show up. Everyone's going to love this. Everyone's going to sign up for my course. Everybody's going to do this, right? I've got this all figured out. That's naive vulnerability. Awake vulnerability is when you can show up knowing that, you know, there are going to be people that love you. There are going to be people that are like 1,000%, I need no more information. I want to join whatever it is you're talking about. I need you in my life. And then they're also, in that same breath of awake vulnerability, are people that say, I want no interest in what you're doing. You totally uninspire me. I'm unfollowing you, and I want nothing to do with what you're doing. Awake vulnerability is, even in those two parallels, you're still showing up. And you're showing up as you, and you're showing up consistently, and you're showing up for you and for the women that you have, that you know in your mind, in your heart, who you're showing up for. Because when you're showing up for the people that you want to inspire and serve and lead, you know, and that could be an online community. For me, I need to show up every day. I feel like it's my responsibility to show up in light and in love and in leadership, because that's what I want to do. And I also want to show who I am. I want to show the things that are quirky about me. I want to show when I sing in my, you know, in a live video, window to the wall, when the sweat drips off my belt. Like, I literally sang that by an accident yesterday on my live. My husband had a heyday, and it's one of like our people, they're laughing. I posted it yesterday. I'm like, I hope this made someone smile. I remember one time I was live and I was so excited. My friend was in Venice, and I said to her, how is Venus? Are you having the best time? And Jamie looks at me. He's like, Venus is a planet. And I was like, oh my God. It doesn't matter of your imperfections. It doesn't matter if you have a perfectly curated feed. It doesn't matter if you don't have the preset that all the influencers have. It matters that you are someone that helps to influence. Mm-hmm. And if you have a passion and you have a big heart, you're an influencer too. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter how big your following is, but you have to show up consistently. So a couple of my top tips are add value. Be more interested than interesting. Show up consistently like it's your job, because it is for a lot of us. Mm-hmm. Okay? It's your marketplace. For me, it's my storefront. And I want to know that when I'm in the inbox, I say this to people, when I message you, like, it's because I really love what you're doing. And I want you to be a part of this with me, or I just want to give you love. Like, there's no pulling or convincing. And I want you to remember that. You don't need to convince anyone to work with you and to serve them. You are so worthy. And you have such a beautiful, if you can remember on your social media that you're there to serve, you're there to bring value, you're there to lead. And honestly, my goal each day is to leave one person better than when they found me first. The sales will come. Your income will grow. But if you're focused on income versus your impact you can make, you will be so caught up with the vanity metrics and you will sink. Stop looking at how many people like your post, unless you're analytical about it like I am, and it's a business analysis, not an ego check, right? And make sure you show up as you. Remember, you've got to remember that if you are not telling people the story of where you went from and how you got there, they don't know who you are. And you come across as disingenuous. And I always ask myself, and I share this with my team all the time, if you're a business owner, you want to start something, at the end of each day, I always ask, would I have bought from you today? Would I have joined your team today? Did you show up with enough effort to join your team? Would you have joined you today? And if you say no, then you have some work to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. It's such a good reminder. I think that sometimes, like you said, those vanity metrics can get people tripped up and they base their worth on that engagement for that day. But sometimes you post things that people just stop, they take a minute, they take a breath, they read it, and they actually don't respond because they're so taken back by what you've just shared. And I think it's so important to remember that engagement doesn't equal impact. It's something that if you're showing up as yourself, and like you said, would you train with you or would you show up and want to work with you today? That's a better metric to go by that effort factor than any engagement that it doesn't really speak to the effort that's being put forward. So I love that. And so the last question I have for you during this time, Kim, is how would you suggest, or how are you changing your message or pivoting your message with everything going on out there right now? How has it changed, I guess, knowing that people are all in different spots and there's a lot of uncertainty out there?
Mm-hmm. I love that question. I think that if I'm honest, I have done what I've always done for the last 5 years. So I always have offered free value and free community. I've run 58 free groups in my life, and I'm never going to stop. I have passion to serve. So for me, my pivot has been more so connecting with people and asking them as a human, how are you? Are you okay? And I have no expectation that all these sales are going to flow in, but I also make sure that they do know that I have a solution and I do have a beautiful community. And one of the things I want to share that's important to understand, and I think sometimes we create somebody else's decision for them because we don't think that they need this right now. When maybe what you have is exactly what they need right now, but you haven't asked. So in this time, don't prejudge, share, connect like you probably always have or should be, and show up as the person you are. But most of all, be a human first and test the waters with how they really are feeling as a human. and just send them love. And really that's my first number one tip. The second one with my pivot is that I will continue to share that I have a beautiful platform to help serve people to build their own businesses as show they wish in wellness, or to serve them as a client if they should wish. I haven't stopped that. What I did do is I ramped up my free offering. So I offered up a 14-day free offering where there's no selling happening. And it's just value, 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 value. And I love that. And if I'm honest, in my 3-day free groups, there's never selling either, because it's really just an opportunity to connect with women that need a space that's safe. So that is what I would encourage you to think about. How have you created a safe space that doesn't require an investment other than their time and their heart, and that they get that back? Because if they choose to go on and train or whatever that is, whatever the services that you offer in your business, that's their choice. But how have you shown up for your community today? How have you shown up for the world today? There are people that are giving free concerts and free how are you contributing to the world right now that's hurting? And that's been my pivot. It's really I ask myself each day thoughtfully, how can I be a light today on social media? How can I share today on social media?
Yeah, I think free groups and value-driven groups are just so much more important than ever, with all the obviously social distancing or physical distancing, not necessarily having to be social distancing in that sense, but people are craving that. And I think the more that is put out there, the more that you can serve your audience. And if you know how to open, you don't need to close. If we're really thinking about the big picture of this, you have the right offerings, you serve up the right value, it organically happens that people just want to be a part of what you're putting out there. So I think that advice is just so on point, and I really appreciate you sharing that. So Kim, where is the best place for people to find you and follow your journey and learn more about you?
Yes. So you can find me on Instagram at Kim_M_Fitzpatrick. You can find us at jamieandkimfitzpatrick.com. Or you can also find me at our headband website, legacybykim.com. And our Instagram is at legacybykim. That's where you can find me. And on Facebook, underneath me, Kim Fitzpatrick.
I love it. I've been checking out your headbands. I did some creeping around there earlier. My goodness, all the cheetah print, so on point. As you can see, obviously I'm all decked out in the cheetah print attire. Your stuff looks amazing. Everyone's going to have to check them out. So thank you so much for your time today, Kim. I so appreciate you being here. And thank you for sharing all your wisdom and golden nuggets. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Ashley. It's been a pleasure.
If you haven't heard yet, our Done For You Marketing Funnel membership is actually closing on April 2nd. So this means if you've been thinking about becoming a Done For You marketing member, this is the time. We're going to be closing it out for enrollment and not taking on any more students because there's been such a big influx of people wanting to really get serious about their business and 100% lean in, with all the people out there that need help right now in finding a work from home opportunity. So if you're one of those coaches that is ready to go 100% into your business, make sure you check out ashleyshaw.ca/masterclass bonuses. And there you're going to see 3 additional bonuses that you're going to get with your Done For You marketing membership, but you have to get started before April 2nd. So in those bonuses, you're going to get training with Trish Taylor on how to slow the scroll, which is all about your branding and really making sure your feeds are popping. You're also going to get Funnels 101, which is 5 tech videos on how to set up a marketing funnel and how to really make it easy so you don't get overwhelmed by the tech. And lastly, I'm going to be doing an ideal customer workshop with you live to make sure you nail your messaging and you know exactly who you're talking to and how to tweak all of your posts and all of your messaging that's going to be going out to your ideal customers. So make sure you check out ashleyshaw.ca/masterclass bonuses, and we'll see you on the other side of the Done For You marketing funnel.